Good evening. Welcome to the regular council meeting of the District of Sechelt for Wednesday, March 6th, 7 p.m. We have an amended agenda. I'd like to call to order the meeting and ask council if there are any declarations of conflict. Councillor McLean. Oh. Still.
Oh, maybe? Okay, I'll just go on this one for now. For item 3.1, the EB's ice cream, I'm going to declare a conflict. One of the proposed locations that has been discussed is Acacia Park, which is beside my mother's property. So I think it's simpler that I don't participate in that.
And?
For item 10.3, I'm going to be stepping out as I am an employee of Custom Flooring.
Thank you. Any others? No, you stay put. All right, so move to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. And Lane Kubisky, please come forward. Typically we give our delegations 10 minutes. So, and then council will be asking questions if they have any of you. Thank you. And we'll have you turn on your mic. Thank you.
Okay.
Can we hear in the back? No, we need the back turned on.
Hello?
Better? Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I guess this blinker here is for moving along. Is it the first? The right arrow? Yeah, okay. Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah. Yes, this particular item right here is what I originally sent as the in the original when I first sent in to be part of this this evening. However, I've got a compiled statement here, which I'll read, and I will just get right to it. As thank you for allowing me to come here tonight and be part of the agenda and to make this proposal to the city and the possible amendment to the bylaw regarding mobile vending. Some of you may have seen us. We have been down in the city for a little bit, around in the area a little bit for last year, but we plan to get a little more embedded in the community. So good evening to you all. As some of you are aware, my name is Lane Kubisky, and my wife and I began an ice cream venture last summer here in the Sechelt area. After a time of vending, research into the viability of our endeavor, speaking to both patrons and business folks, we have come to a few conclusions. Sechelt wants an ice cream shop. Sechelt wants a place to take visiting friends and family to get a quality, locally made ice cream. Sechelt wants to vitalize the commercial core, wants its people and visitors to enjoy the sights of the ocean and the parks, to drink in the loveliness of the area, to take in the town itself. Sechelt wants to build a greater sense of community. Now, with the above in mind, I have been wrestling with how to set up our business, given the current sense of the community, the bylaws, the economic conditions, viable locations to draw both foot traffic and motorists, as well as our available capital. We had all the above points to consider. Our vision is to eventually create our own exclusive brand of ice cream here on the Sunshine Coast, to have a bricks and mortar location year round. However, we must find a Goldilocks solution to achieve this. We need to create the capital to move in that direction, a just right means. After vending at the weekend events in the latter part of the summer, a consistent question came up from patrons. Do you have a store? Do you have a location during the week? The lot in Davis Bay where we were set up between events was not at all well suited, though it was a start and got us noticed. We discerned the probable best pathway, that is labor capital investment to a return, is indeed a better stationary flagship or anchor location. With this, we realized can be coupled with our ability to serve the special events here on the coast with the mobile setup we used last year, though with a few modifications. Over the course of the winter, I pondered and researched modalities to vend. Due to a few conversations and ideas bandied about, the possibility of a kiosk in the downtown core sprang up. After floating the idea to a landowner, he and his tenants were not warmed to the idea utilizing his particular property. I then set out to explore another avenue. I began to gauge the sentiment of the local merchants in the core of the downtown about a kiosk in Acacia Park. Overwhelmingly, the majority of merchants said, "Why not?" And in fact, several said, "Awesome." A few were opposed, and I noted their concerns. A few didn't get back to me. Ultimately, we received the backing of the Sechelt Downtown Business Association. I have that letter with me today, and a copy of the numerous signatures of individual business owners who support this idea. In speaking with these folks, it was acknowledged that this would bring people off the highway, utilize the Acacia Park, increase foot traffic downtown, and create a greater sense of community. After taking the idea to some administrators, a few concerns have stalled the idea of a location in the Acacia Park for now. I plan to return to this idea in time. For now, we want to get up and running so as to provide Sechelt with fun, great ice cream, a focal point to congregate and share. Hence my proposal this evening. We wish to set up a kiosk at Friendship Park for the duration of the summer season, approximately from May to the end of September. A kiosk which is secured with an alarm system and lockable. As it reads now, the bylaw refers to a vehicle or apparatus as means of conducting commerce. It does refer to mobile vendor many times. It seems that one is incumbent to invest in an apparatus which is readily mobile only. It does not allow for other modalities of commerce that may not be as mobile, such as a cart or a kiosk. This relates to my second point, as you shall see. In dealing with the administration, it seemed that something on wheels was the only modality worthy of consideration under current bylaw parameters. It was mentioned one would have to take the device away each day. A traditional food truck is very expensive, especially given the population base of the coast. We would have to leave the coast to compete in Vancouver to recoup that cost. That is not serving the coast. A traditional food cart is expensive also and leaves patrons, foodstuffs, and vendor out in the elements. It also limits the inventory and selection. Should a storm come about, it must be put under cover immediately. It is mobile. A pre-fitted concession trailer is also very expensive and would necessitate eventual vending off the coast. A kiosk is less mobile, but mobile nonetheless. It affords greater cover for foodstuffs, greater selection and inventory. The ability to house equipment is meant for a serious ice cream shop. Plus, a sturdy canopy awning can be attached to afford shelter from the elements. In fact, you shall see I have a design in mind that blends both a trailer and a kiosk. Bear with me. The bylaw states a seasonal vendor can use a parcel of land identified in this bylaw for a time ranging up to 8 consecutive months, which is Section 2, Item F. Now, to be able to remain in that location in any way overnight, one needs to apply for a special events permit, Section 12, Item 4. However, that permit allows one to set up for 9 consecutive days only, or for 1 day a week for a maximum of 4 months. As you may see, there's a bit of murkiness here and forces one to be exclusively mobile and to leave the parcel each day. We would like this to be clarified so that kiosks and other similar means of vending are identified in the bylaw, and also the bylaw to allow vending apparatuses to set up for the summer vending season and then taken away at the end of the season, provided they are secured, of course. For now, we are applying it for Friendship Park as an ongoing location for this season. We applied with the administration under the current bylaw, however, were turned down because of lack of mobility, but did so for it to act as a placeholder, this idea according to Mr. Curry. As far as I know, there are no other persons, although I did find out today there are other people interested in the place but have not submitted any applications. So that's a bit of an amendment. The roadway up to the pad has a configuration which makes it difficult to back a trailer. In part, it is what's known as a blind back. I can appreciate how previous vendors did not like this location. However, one can make a single back, set up a kiosk trailer on blocks, set a tasteful skirting around it, and leave it for the season. To back in and set up daily in this area is a hazard which would be multiplied with the possibility of an accident involving the public or the vendor. On one point, I am firm. I want my unit to be have a low profile. The service window to be accessible to the patron. We have many seniors here in Sechelt, many in scooters. I want them to feel important enough to not be towering over them from a wheeled unit. I want to look at them on their level, and this includes kids. Ice cream and kids is a given. I realize most kids are in glee with anticipation of a tasty treat. Nonetheless, we don't want them to feel lorded over while we serve them. It is not unusual to see platforms at concessions. However, I feel this is unnecessary and it would create a tripping hazard, as well as create a larger footprint for the equipment. My design is such that the service window is low enough to accommodate my aim. And with that, I'll go through these photos this is just an example I found online. Another example of kiosks on wheels. However, this is more of a stationary unit. And just recently I found this. This is basically, and much to my surprise, much of the design that what I'm looking for. I can build this myself, keep it low to the ground. That is essentially this color scheme and the appearance that I am planning to build. Very tasteful, well thought out, something that would fit in to the area of Friendship Park. And in fact, my design, the windows would be lower. But essentially that is the idea. Mine would actually take in a greater amount of cedar shakes, cedar siding, and rather flip the cedar siding up to into the gable area, and cedar siding largely on the wall area, much like this particular scheme. That's just an example as a scheme of design. But essentially, my kiosk is of this. In fact, here, I'll send this around. This is my own sketch drawing of this. With that, any questions?
All right, council, any questions? No questions? Okay. I think you've talked to most of the councilors individually, right?
I have talked to I spoke with Mr. Toth, Mr. Scott, and Jazz Kuster, and briefly yourself some time ago, prior to all this flowering as in this proposition in this framework.
Right.
By the way, like I say, Acacia Park, I'll come back to it later. That'll be at a different time, but.
Okay, so you have a request here. I think this would be something we'd probably want to refer to staff to come back and let us know the ins and outs. And do you need a motion for that? Yes? Would someone like to make a motion to refer this to staff? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll get staff to come back and give us a broader picture.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So we have no proclamations. We should probably get Matt back in. I can text him actually. He's out in the hallway. Okay, so we're moving on to item 5.1. This is adoption of the minutes of previous council meetings. So minutes of the 3 p.m. special council meeting of February 20th. Someone like to adopt? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Yeah, there wasn't much there in that one. So minutes of the regular council meeting of Wednesday, February 20th. Let's first do a motion to receive. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Any errors or omissions? Anything that you'd, yes, Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Page 13, 11.1, all of the reports from councillors refer to LGMA, but it was LGLA that we were at.
Yes, correct. Thank you. Any other amendments? Councillor McLean.
Same section, page 13, under Mayor Seeger's report. The conference wasn't hosted by Frank Leonard. A session was hosted by Frank Leonard.
Thank you. Any other errors or omissions? All right, so with those amendments, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of February 27th, pages 15 to 22. First, a motion to receive the minutes. Moved and seconded. Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Any errors or omissions in here? Councillor McLean.
Page 19 at the bottom. It's not Sandy Hook Heights, I believe. It's Sunshine Heights.
Okay. Any other errors or omissions? I think there was one that I found.
Yeah, I got one more.
Page 21. Page 21, middle of the page, second bullet down. The sentence just isn't clear. Staff to provide more information on the potential impacts to the new On the Ebb Tide Dog Park. I don't know what we're supposed to be saying there. Sure, go ahead, Councillor McLean.
Okay, so staff to provide more information on the potential impacts of moving facilities, not workers, currently located at the WRC property to the new site, the operations center site, due to the Ebb Tide Dog Park.
Okay. Is that clear for staff? Okay. Any other errors or omissions? Councillor McLean.
Page 22, McElhaney has a capital E.
Sorry, say that one again. Where was that one?
Page 22,
Yes.
paving program, McElhaney,
Oh, yes.
capital E.
Yes. All right. Any other errors or omissions? All right. So a motion to adopt the minutes as amended. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. So we're moving to item 8.1A. This is the sign amendment bylaw. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The bylaw in front of you is an amendment to our sign bylaw. It was in response to a delegation from the Rotary Club to allow for reflective house numbering, and our bylaw does not actually allow, has a passage in there where you can actually do reflective, luminous, day glow and such. So the bylaw amendment is proposing that it include a notwithstanding clause, and that that particular section, 12M, not apply to house numbering if it's limited to just the number, and it reflects the size limit on house numbering currently in the bylaw.
Thank you. Any
So
questions? Sorry?
Sorry, I was just going to say, concluding, it's for 3 readings.
3 readings. Thank you. Any questions by council? All right, so we have a motion to give first, second, and third readings. Is council in support of that? I'll let somebody move that. Second, all in favor? So let's move to the amendment bylaw on page 25, item 8.1B. This is a sign amendment bylaw number 456-3, 2019, a bylaw to amend the District of Sechelt sign bylaw number 456, 2006. I'd like for someone to give first reading. Moved first reading. Second. All in favor of first? Thank you. And second reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor of second reading? Thank you. And third reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. 3 readings. Item 8.2A. This will be to the corporate officer. This is proposed fees amendment bylaw number 333-9, 2019, user fee for electric vehicle charging stations. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn it to the corporate officer. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council considered the idea of levying a user fee for electric vehicle charging stations in May of 2016 when the attached staff report, the report that's attached to my staff report, was brought forward to committee. In a sort of routine review of user fees that staff has conducted over the past months, it came to our attention that that council had dealt with this item by way of the council resolution that's in the middle of page 27, and in fact directed that the implementation of a user fee commence at the rate of 35 cents per kilowatts and a minimum charge of $2. However, that was never acted on. So we've brought it forward now. The bylaw is in front of you, recognizing some period of time has gone by. We thought council would also perhaps like the opportunity to review it further. Thank you.
Okay, so just a process question. If this is already passed but not implemented, it's still in force, is it not?
No, what was passed by council was direction for staff to come forward with an amendment bylaw that would allow the fee to be charged, and that's the part that was never proceeded with.
Thank you. All right, any questions by council? Councillor Toth.
This is a question for staff at the top of page 27. It mentions that the fast charger is in place with a land lease and an agreement with BC Hydro. Is there any requirement in that lease to keep it free? Like just...
No, it's actually just to make a formal arrangement between us and Clayton's Mall to allow us, I think we take 2 of the parking spots there, but it's basically just for that purpose.
Any other questions?
Actually,
go ahead.
Yeah, just one more. We have a breakdown in terms of what the fast charger cost versus the level 2 chargers back in 2016. And I see that under the financial implications, we have the total $5,500 for the year, $1,300 for data maintenance and software, and $4,200 for hydro. Do we know how that breaks down between the fast charger and the level 2 chargers?
Not in great detail. Basically, we looked at the last 2 years' worth of data and kind of came up with an average. We could certainly do a more detailed financial review. I can say that the fast chargers are more expensive. We pay more hydro for the fast chargers than the other ones, which is why we think it led to council approving a user fee for the fast charger ones. That's the biggest impact on our hydro, but at this point I'm not able to break it down that accurately.
Okay. And then just a follow-up statement to go with it. I'm actually an administrator on the level 2 charger over at Trail Bay Mall, and I know that the charger over there costs about $2 a day to run in electricity. So we've got 3 level 2 chargers in the district. So if they get used as much as that one does, it's about $2 a day per charger. So.
Yeah. Any other questions? Councillor Kuster?
I just have a question. Is this a common practice to charge, like in municipalities, for electric charging station? Does anyone know? Or is it?
we could certainly find that out, but I guess I should say I did little research on this. I attached the staff report that was quite thorough, so sorry I don't have that information, but again, we could certainly come up with that information.
Councillor McLean?
I did some brief research on that one. Overall, I would say it is uncommon to charge, yes. However, the couple that I did find that charge are the same rates for the level, or for the fast charger that we are proposing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Lamb.
So will this be like a credit card type of collection? Is that how they're going to collect the $2 a day or $2 a charge?
Could I maybe defer to our...
Yes, Your Worship, I understand the machines can accept credit cards, and that's how it is.
Okay, so do we know how much that will cost? Or are we going to offset the cost of, by charging $2 a charge, are we going to be able to offset the cost of the infrastructure needed and the charges by the credit card company to charge that?
I believe the credit card company just charges a percentage of the charge, so it would be somewhere between 3% and 9%. I'm not sure exactly what it is we charge.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so what would you like to do? Councillor McLean.
I'm going to come up with a bit of a different approach to this. So for me, this comes down to two issues: the fairness of providing free charging to people and the potential for abuse of that system, and how to encourage more clean vehicle usage in the District of Sechelt. So free charging encourages more people to buy electric vehicles. I think that's the purpose of this program. But it is a system that can be abused. People can park their cars for hours at a charging station when they may not need to use it. And that's something that should be addressed. The charge for charging an electric vehicle at any location, either at home or if you pay, it's very minimal compared to gas costs for a comparable distance. So I think there's another way that we can encourage more people to use electric vehicles in Sechelt. And I think the best way to do that is by installing more public charging stations at different locations around Sechelt. So what I want to do is take all of the funds generated from our existing charging stations after we charge a fee and put those towards creating more charging stations. I recognize that we're not going to generate a lot of money for these stations, but over time, eventually we'll get enough to buy one more station. What this does is it creates an incentive for current EV owners to use the stations, and it helps grow our charging network. When we have programs such as EV charging, we need to ensure that they are well used. I fear that if we implement fees for charging, fewer people will use these stations, and then it will be very difficult for us to justify building new stations. So what this does is kind of brings those two issues together. I want us to continue subsidizing the cost of operating these stations, but charge people for using them. We take that money, put it into a fund to buy more charging stations. I think it really addresses all the challenges that we find in this program, and it allows us to move forward in a more collaborative way with electric vehicle owners and encourage the use of our facilities that we have established and put in the District of Sechelt. So to that end, I'd like to move a motion that all funds received from electric vehicle charging stations be directed to further expansion of the electric vehicle charging network.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Thought before they speak. Okay, so go ahead, Brenda.
Well, first off, I'm a bit confused. So have we decided that for sure as a council, we are going to go ahead with charging? No. So what I feel like I would need to know before I could support that, Councillor McLean, is actually what our actual costs are, because most of the numbers that we're looking at are from 2016 at the latest. If we could send it back to staff and pull some more current data, we might actually see, you know, if there's been an increase in the last 2 years, because there is good data here around the 2 years prior to 2015. So are the number of charges going up? Are they being better utilized? Because when I do the math, among the 5 charging stations on average, it's about a charge every, like half a visit a day. So I don't know that I could support that, although I absolutely support the underlying philosophy behind it. But I'd like to see it go, I'd like to get further, fresher information before moving forward with a decision around this topic, myself, personally.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Toth?
The level 2 chargers that the District of Sechelt has in place everywhere except for the Water Resource Center are at end of life, essentially. They're out of warranty, parts are no longer available, they're going to keep running until they break, and then they have to be replaced. Because the unit at the mall is the exact same thing, and we've gone looking for parts before for it. So we're going to have to look at it in a more complete picture at some point, I think. But I too would be interested in seeing more current information on the utilizations. So, thank you.
Any other comments by any other councillors? Yes, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Richard. I just want to...
You could stand up and answer.
Just want to comment on Councillor Toth's comment there, just to let you know that actually we have just recently issued a PO to purchase 2 new charging stations. They're actually last year's models. Just to let you know, we got them for 3,900 Canadian each, right? They normally retail for 6,600 US each, so sort of says last year's models, almost like a car dealership getting rid of them, so we were able to pick up 2. So we'll be getting 2 spares if you want, so when anyone's go, we can immediately replace them.
Okay, so is there anybody who'd like to make a motion with regards to this? Councillor Rowe.
I'd like to make a motion that we send this back to staff for some updated numbers around utilization and the actual cost. If it's the same cost via BC Hydro as it was 2 years ago, that would be refreshing, but I would like some updated numbers.
And is there a seconder for that? Seconder? Any comments? Councillor McLean?
Just for clarity to staff's perspective, are we looking at charges, looking for updated numbers on that, or just the base finances? Because personally, I think the proposed charges are in line with industry standards, so I don't think staff need to look into those too deeply unless you would like them to.
Councillor Rowe?
I'd sort of like to know how many times the charging stations have been utilized. How many times somebody has pulled up and plugged in. Does that make sense?
I think that information will also go a long way to either supporting or not Councillor McLean's potential motion, right? If we're losing money on them, we won't have money to put towards new ones, or we can choose not to. We could actually have the rest of the residents subsidize those who have electric cars, etc. But that's then a policy decision around how we deal with that once we have more accurate information. Any other comments on the motion on the floor? All those in favor? Thank you. Item 8.3A, Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw number 568-1, 2009. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And did you want to speak to this, or should we? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? We've seen this before. Councillor Toth.
I do have one question. From a process perspective, does this get consolidated into the main bylaw, or is this kept as a separate amendment document?
It will be consolidated in. This amendment will be consolidated in with the parent document and actually be a document online and called a consolidated bylaw.
Perfect, thank you. I know that whether accurate or not, I've heard some complaints from people about consolidation and trying to find all the updates. So thank you.
We're better at some than we are others, definitely.
Thank you. So there's a motion here to proceed with adoption. Someone like to move that motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. So let's move to page 41. Item 8.3B, bylaw number 568-1, 2019, a bylaw to amend council procedure bylaw number 568, 2018, and a motion to adopt. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. So item 10.1, this is under business items. This is a zoning amendment application for lawn and web rezoning for 5664 Nickerson Road, West Seashout neighborhood. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn over to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a rezoning application on Nickerson in order to change current zoning in that site from RR1 to R1 residential so that they can actually accommodate a guest cottage on that property. It is over the 2,000 square meters, so it is permissible under that kind of zoning. There are a number of lots that run along Nickerson in this particular area that are zoned currently RR1, but they don't actually meet the minimum standard for an RR1. So just to give you some context, we're going to come back with a few other things when we do the zoning bylaw. This will probably go into an R1 or something like that. It shouldn't be a rural residential in that particular neighborhood. It's a very suburban environment, and it doesn't meet those lot sizes. So it is something that we would look at more comprehensively. In this particular one, the applicant initially wanted to subdivide this property, and unfortunately Kevin's is a strata road and they weren't able to get access. So this particular application allows them to move forward without a subdivision, but to rezone to the R1 to allow the guest cottage. That is the location, and you can see the rear area. They actually have quite a bit of area there to accommodate it. We will be applying DP number 8 simply to deal with the setbacks, because as we found with another guest cottage, we don't have anything solid in the zoning bylaw to guide just the setback requirements on that. We only have accessory building, and those would be very tight in this particular application. So that gives you an idea of the difference between the RR1 and the surrounding R1 zoning. So it is, I guess, just a legacy of some older zoning, but it doesn't meet the right standard. It did go to APC for their review, Advisory Planning Commission. They raised a few issues around short-term rental use. Short-term rental is a permitted use in the R1 zone. Their concern was around that loss of long-term rental. We do have restrictions if it's in secondary suite, but the bylaw and the business license bylaw is silent on whether it would restrict in a guest cottage. So there's nothing currently restricting them, so that would need to come forward as if council wanted to impose that. It could come through as a condition on the rezoning. Engineering will require connection to sewer, and as a condition of rezoning, the author was suggesting including adaptability standards. This is quite different from accessibility standards. It usually involves making sure that particularly in the bathrooms, that there's backing to be able to do the grab bars and that sort of thing. It doesn't add a lot, and little wider doors. Doesn't usually add a lot when it's in new construction. If any of you have ever had to retrofit for an aging parent, it's really expensive when you have to rip it out. So that was suggested as a condition of the rezoning. So the recommendation here is that we'd be authorized to draft the zoning bylaw amendment, and then we would bring it back. It had intended to be a first reading and ask permission for public hearing. My bad. The author thought the permission to proceed was applicable to all rezoning. So I didn't clarify that very well. So we will bring this back very quickly. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Councillor Kuster?
I just was wondering, how would you access that? Would it be off Nickerson and just through the same driveway, or?
Yeah, so they'd have to, and because that was one of the constraining features, they couldn't put a driveway too close to that intersection, and they couldn't do one off Kevin. So it would have to be in basically the same location and figure out an area to get into access there.
Any other questions? Okay, how would you like to proceed? We have two motions in front of us on page 43. Councillor Toth?
I'll move recommendations 2 and 3.
Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor? Thank you. This is on notice on title 5127 Betty Road, lot 41, blocks 72 and 73, etc., district lot, etc. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a request to apply a Section 57 notice on title on 5127 Betty Road. We have brought these forward previously. It's really for bylaw infractions. Let me go through what it is. So location is just off Nesman. And the issues that warrant the notice on title, work started without a building permit. From a zoning perspective, CCANs are not allowed in a residential zone. And from an accessory structure point of view, the setbacks are too tight. There is a structure above it. I think actually I've got another photo. No, it doesn't really work. So they are doing a roof structure along that. That also didn't get building permit for that. It had been noted that there was power running to this CCAN. We do not have authority to really guide kind of what's happening in there, but it's certainly, we get very concerned, and why we ask for building permit on CCANs is if there's any kind of flammable activity, they explode. They're basically a bomb. So that's why we have set requirements in the District of Sechelt around venting, and if they're used for any active kind of storage, particularly where we have staff, if it's used for that kind of storage, that we have a man door put in that. So the rationale here is that there had been a stop work order on the site. There hadn't been movement on applying for the building permits despite formal notices to the applicant, or actually it wasn't an applicant, to the owner. And as a result of that, the building inspector is recommending council authorization to apply the Section 57. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions by council? I have a couple of questions. So we're putting a notice on title, if that's how it goes, put a notice on title. How do we actually deal with the site? Because that is still going on the site. There is a stop work order, but then what?
Applying the notice on title is just one aspect of the enforcement. It doesn't preclude any other enforcement activities. So we do have authority to ticket, to do compliance orders, that sort of thing. So that could continue with this if it didn't come into compliance. We do find with a lot of notice on titles, it's strong enough that people make an effort to come into compliance, and then we're able to remove it relatively quickly. So that certainly would be our objective here, is to obtain compliance with this, and then we go through a process to remove it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions by council? Councillor Scott.
So basically what I see in this is that the only thing they can do is remove it. That it's just got to go. Okay.
The chair, for the CCAN, yes. If they wanted to continue with the back element, if that was going to be an accessory structure and it met our zoning requirements, that could continue with a building permit.
Any other questions by council? And how would you like to proceed? There is a motion on page 52. Would you like to make that motion?
I'll move recommendation 2.
Is there a seconder? Second. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. I would like to speak on this. Sorry, at the end of the, oh, yes, property owner? Okay. 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 I was given a letter saying that we have a right to come here. Okay, please sit down at the and turn on the microphone. Thank you.
Sure. Why not? Let's talk about this.
Okay, so first of all, in regards to the stop work order, the building inspector has written on here Building Code 409/2003. Part 3, Site 3.13, but in your staff...
Unsigned, by the way.
Yes, and it's also not signed.
First of all.
And...
First and second of all, with the pictures about the CCAN and the thing, did you guys, anybody, actually send out surveyors to do a lot survey?
That was...
I did.
Hang on.
Okay? That is offset. The fence is not the property line. It is on our property fully. So the old neighbors, unfortunately, you new council don't know about the problems we have with our old neighbors. So that's
sorry, sir. Yes, I do. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Please go ahead.
So, on the stop work order, not only is it not signed, but he's also written the wrong code number down. So, he's written down Building Code number 409/2003, Part 3, Section 3.13, but in your summary in his report, he's got Building Bylaw number 409/2008. States, no person shall commence or continue any construction, alteration, reconstruction, demolition, removal, relocation of any building or structure, including excavation or other works related to construction, unless a building official has issued a valid or substituting permit for the work. So also in the building code, in Part 1 of the District of Sechelt number 409/2003, it states that the building is not to, standard building definition means a building of 3 stories or less, having a building area not exceeding 600 square meters. The CCAN is only 400 square meters, for one thing, and used for major occupancy, A, residential occupancy, B, business and personal services occupancy, C, mercantile occupancy, or D, medium and low hazard industrial occupancy. 1.5, scope and exemptions, 1.51. This bylaw applies to the design and construction and occupancy of new buildings and structures. 1.5.2, this bylaw does not apply to buildings or structures exempt by Part 1 of the Building Code. Part 1 of the Building Code states, application of this code does not apply to the following: temporary buildings, which is exactly what I had stated to Mr. Sheedy the day that the day Mr. Sheedy came. I explained to him this was only a temporary building. This has been going on since 2015, when Mr. Horning, the bylaw officer, originally came to our property, and Mr. Sikora, my husband, explained to him and the original building inspector, John, I can't think of his name, that there is going to be a garage there, that we excavated down to hard pan, which it is, and the CCAN is a temporary structure on the site for us to be building a garage there.
For storage.
For storage. And just so, there was an application received and accepted by the District of Sechelt yesterday for our building permit, which was paid for, plans were submitted, it was received yesterday.
Thank you. Any questions by council?
I hadn't quite finished yet.
Oh, sorry, okay.
So the CCAN, when it states in here regarding there is a concern of health and safety, I'm a certified health and safety officer. I was the health and safety officer at the hospital. I was the health and safety officer at the Liberty Project. I was the health and safety officer at the Gibsons Elementary School. So when I'm looking at my own home, why would anybody think that I would go any less than when it comes to health and safety of my own property, for one thing? And again, I am a certified health and safety officer. Another thing, the roof structure that is over there is temporary. You can look at your own pictures that you had up there. It's not attached to the CCAN. It's simply a structure so I didn't get wet. It's not attached to anything. The CCAN, it also explains, I believe, in the District of Building or District of Sechelt bylaw and in the building code, a permanent building has to either be sunk into the ground or on a foundation. The CCAN is neither. It's a temporary building, just as stated in the building permit application submitted yesterday.
Except for the harassment of a neighbor causing this, and this being allowed to continue. We've lived there for 20 years, okay? I have not had this harassment except for in the last couple of years. I'm getting very tired of this by the district, sending bylaws and then using police, which have been told that they can't use this. This is, again, an ongoing thing.
I think what Mr. Sikora is relating to is on the day that they came to the property on August 29th. The first thing that Mr. Sheedy had said to me was when he was with Greg, the bylaw officer, was they received a complaint. And I understand.
Have to comply.
Finish, please. I understand, Mayor Seegers, you've been on with the council previously, so you are quite aware of the issues that we've had previously with the District of Sechelt. Unfortunately, the other council members aren't aware of this, so I will give you a brief summary. We have been before this council in this office many times. It has came to light that the District of Sechelt attempted on several occasions to infringe on our charter rights. There was court action taken, which actually the District of Sechelt dropped because they were made aware they were violating our charter rights. So you can understand our apprehension, once again, when we see a bylaw officer and somebody coming to us saying that they've received a complaint against the neighbor. My first thing I said to him was, tell me who it was. Give me a ticket, because I'm more than happy to go to court again. So now this has changed to it's a structure over a CCAN. So what is the
other question I want to know, District, have you gone around and enforced this in all the other CCANs in districts? Because I'm going to bring upon us over 12 pictures of CCANs around my neighborhood. And I sure hope they all have permits, because I know for a fact I've talked to a couple of them and they don't. So you got to be fair all the way around the district.
Okay, are you complete? Yes. Thank you. So first, a couple questions to staff. Do we have a building permit in place? Do we know?
Through the chair, it was submitted late afternoon yesterday.
Okay. For what? For this?
I didn't actually see the application. I just heard from the building inspector it was.
It's for the building of a garage.
Yeah. Okay, and how long has this CCAN been on site?
Since July.
July of this year?
Well, 2018.
2018. Yeah. So what was the 2015 you were referring to?
I'm referring to when this all started with the District of Sechelt, prior to just give you a brief summary of where the apprehension came from on our behalf when they initially came to our property regarding this. Another thing I'd like to mention, on or about January 3rd, 2 District of Sechelt employees came to my property without letting me know and trespassed onto my property. I had somebody in my yard working and they seen them. I went out into my yard. They immediately got into their vehicles, drove away. I went up to my front door, stood on my front deck. They drove around and I'm like, stop. They would not stop to talk to me. They entered onto my property without letting me know and then proceeded to take off as soon as I seen them.
Okay.
Which is a violation of your own charter, community charter.
Thank you. So we have passed something. How do we deal with this if we want to defer it to let staff look at, the building permit so that we can actually have this come back to us at the next meeting?
Well, shouldn't have I been able to speak before you pass the motion, though?
Yeah, it's procedural.
It's procedural, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, so Your Worship, right now, council could pass a motion to rescind the previous resolution and then proceed however you would like from there.
Okay, thank you. And Tracy, did you want to speak?
Just to clarify, in terms of the, a couple of things. In terms of the January visit, I actually asked by law enforcement to go there because I did get a request for a notice on title, and it was not clear to me what the infraction was. So that was just a fact finding so that we weren't doing this.
Either way, you still can't come onto my property without notice.
Without notice. Thank
Please stop. They have absolute right, and it's written into the bylaw.
Oh, let me show you. Let me show you.
Excuse
No,
me.
you're not.
Excuse me. We can take that up offline after. Thank you.
We can take a lot up.
The stop work order is related to starting construction, and it doesn't matter whether it is temporary, whether or in this case, it would meet the definition of structure. The building inspector's concern was that it was starting without building permit. They were requested to, and they didn't. The CCAN, if it was under a commercial or industrial, we would require building permit on it. This isn't allowed under the zoning period, and we have never had cases where someone needs to have a temporary area when they're building a garage. We wouldn't allow it in a residential area. So that's not really relevant to the argument here. It's not a matter of it being temporary or whether we make the CCAN work or not. It's not allowed. Thank you.
So we have a couple of items. One is the stop work order that is in place right now. Whether or not the building permit has been applied for, the CCAN is not legal in the residential lot.
May I address the CCAN issue? The CCAN...
CCANs are not allowed on residential lots.
I know, but this CCAN, it's different because this is going to fall under federal regulations.
It's not allowed currently in residential.
It'll fall under federal regulations. We have a legal right to grow medical cannabis according to the federal government. We are both licensed to do it.
And I'd like
not
to know
in a
about
CCAN
the other
on
CCANs
regular.
and C-shells, so I hope you enforce this because
Bring them forward. That's
like
fine.
I said, the stop work order wasn't signed.
And the field inspection
That's
report
not
simply says to apply for a building permit. That's what it says.
And we did apply for a building permit, so.
Okay, so we have before us a motion that we've passed that we file notice in land titles that upon confirmation from the building official, all outstanding issues are resolved, required permits, certifications, inspections approved. The notice may be discharged from the title upon receipt of the required fee. What would council like to do? Councillor McLean.
I'd like to start by rescinding this motion, and we can reconsider it given that we should have received the presentation first. So just to be procedurally correct,
Okay.
I'd like to rescind it.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. And then I'd like to request that this come to the next council meeting. So brought forward, and any of the questions and concerns that the applicants have brought forward be clarified and addressed in the report. Is there a seconder? I'll make that a motion. Is there a seconder for that? Yep. Thank you. Any comments? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you. And Councillor Kuster is going to leave us. And then we're moving to page 58. This is a development variance permit for Custom Flooring Center. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn over to staff.
Thank you. This is a request for a development variance permit on related to the sign bylaw, as well as the development permit guidelines for downtown, which has a lot to say about signage. this particular area. So it is the Custom Flooring Center right on the corner of, in the mall on the corner of Wharf and the Highway. Some of the signage that's related here is actually in place, so it's seeking to allow it to continue, as well as 2 additional signs. So it's the development permit area number 6 downtown center, which can create a little bit of grief for some of our businesses. A lot of this signage related to the downtown in terms of restrictions on size and area, copy, really pertains to kind of trying to do a Main Street kind of environment. When it's the mall, or it's a strip mall such as this, it tends to actually undersize a lot of the signage. So when this was one of the cases where it actually fits with what is already existing, and so to actually impose the bylaw would be a little visually unusual, call it that. So they are requesting two wall signs. They are requesting a variance to not have to come in conformity for the freestanding, because that's been in place for about 10 years, and what they're requesting to do simply matches what's already in place. And the same issue with the canopy sign. There are existing signs up there, and the request they have for the copy area and the width actually fits with what is around it. So that is there's one wall sign going in along the Wharf Avenue, facing Wharf Avenue, and that's quite a large area, so that it's quite proportional. And then one that faces the lane. It's fairly subtle because I've driven by it umpteen times before I actually noticed it. It faces the lane, and you can see it from the highway when you're up a little further on the hill. And then this is the freestanding sign, so it's essentially in place. Under the development permit area guidelines, it actually suggests that with freestanding signs that it have 2 sides anchoring it, and preferably more of a monument size. That would be extremely challenging to do here. It'd also be a traffic hazard because it's right in where people turn in, and that site's quite challenging in that regard. That's the canopy sign. So the recommendation is that the development variance permit 2018-06 for Custom Flooring Center be approved for the variances as they've requested, and it's subject to a statutory notification process. And that's written in a whole lot more detail that wouldn't fit on PowerPoint. That concludes. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from Council? Councillor McLean.
So this is a procedural one. Page 65.4C, increase the number of signs permitted from 2 signs to 3 signs. We're dealing with 4 signs, so what happened to the other sign?
Chair, the directory as it doesn't actually count to that because it's not just specific to that building.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, would someone like to move something? There's a recommended motion on page 58.
I'll motion to go with number 2, option 2.
Recommendation number 2 as presented. Is there a seconder? Second. Any questions, comments? Councillor McLean.
So I recognize that this business has essentially 3 frontings to the street, so I can justify why it would need an increase in the number of signs. I have a harder time with the size of the signs, particularly, I'm just going to get my numbers right, because sign number 1, the one that would be in front of the back entrance. Yeah. And I believe that is a sign that is not currently put up, whereas all of the other signs are existing today. So I've talked to a lot of businesses, and they try really hard to abide by our sign bylaw. They could be hurting their business by trying to abide by our sign bylaw. So it's not fair to grant these exemptions over and over and over again. So I want to try, we really need to revise the sign bylaw, but looking at the issue in front of us today, I think we should attempt to get as close to it as possible. So I'd like to see sign 1 reduced to 3 meters, given that it wouldn't have significant financial impact on the business.
So how would that be changed in our motion that's on the floor?
Okay, I'll move to amend recommendation 2 and remove either D or E. I'm not sure which one refers to sign 1.
All right, I wrote it down on the PowerPoint. Sign 1 is the second one. It is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 5th bullet down. Is the increase in wall sign area from 3 meters to 8.98 is related to sign 1, and the second one is related to sign 2.
Okay, so I'll move to take section E out of that motion.
Motion is to remove section E or to reduce section E?
If we remove it, in effect, they have to abide by the sign bylaw, which would be 3 meters. If I'm
okay, is there a seconder for that motion or the amendment? Sorry,
amendment.
The amendment. The amendment to the motion. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded. Okay, any other comments?
I'm just curious if you were to take that and drop that down to a third.
Did I have that wrong?
How would that proportionally look to the size of the building? Like,
oh, sorry. Let me clarify. Thank you. In terms of the ordering of that, sign 1 is actually B, so it would be the sign area. So if I'm amending it, it's 2B, the 3 meter to 7.62. And so the amendment would be to not allow that particular variance, but on the other one it would. Sorry.
Thank you. Do you want us to amend that? B to E, okay, change to B, okay. And the question was, if this sign is reduced from the 7.62 square meters to the 3 meters, what would that look like on that building, size-wise, comparatively?
And before we make the same mistake we made last time, I see Ms. Saunders is here. Maybe she'd like to speak to it. Actually,
I'd like to see if we have this up on the, yeah, see if we have a picture there. Councillor McLean?
If I can respond to that, it would be small. It would be it would be like a lot of the other businesses in our community who are trying to abide by the sign bylaw and creating smaller signs because they don't want to go through this variance process. So yes, it would be small, but it would be consistent with a lot of other signs in our community, and recognizing that this is one of 4 signs, and I'm going to let the one on the back of the building stand that is already quite large.
So that's the one we're talking about here at this point. And your comment was that it covers, sorry?
If I understand the report, it covers 8%, right? To put it in perspective.
Councillor Scott, do you have your microphone on? Did you want to make a comment?
Oh, sorry.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we can vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? That was okay, and all those opposed? Thank you. So the motion as presented on page 58 is what's in front of us. All those in favor of the motion as presented? And opposed? No, did you all vote in favor as well? Sorry, I was too slow at turning my head. Okay, thank you. So that's complete. And we can, let's see if I can get her to come back. Yes.
Just a quick question for Tracy. Our sign bylaw is in the pipeline to be reviewed as a whole, right?
Staff?
Through the chair, it's actually a draft done. So we're looking at it internally and getting the photos in and bring it for public consultation.
Perfect, thank you.
Yay. All right, we're moving on to item 10.4. This is Chapman Creek Holding Limited, 4510 Sunshine Coast Highway Development Variance Permit. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And we'll turn over to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a development variance application at the Big Maples property. I think I've had the location map there. So in the Big Maples Mobile Home Park, they had application last year for the Click Homes that have gone in, and so this is related to that area only. And their desire is to add carports to each of the units. In order to do so, they need a variance on all the setback requirements, both side yard, rear yard, and the setback to the interior road. It was evaluated against DP8 and DP7 apply to this. This is what it looks like. This is the first home that you can see from the road that already has it in place. That's their show home. So their request is to essentially take all the setbacks to 0. This is what the finished product looks like. And so they're requesting, there's a better map in your package that shows where these would be located. This is the extent of the setbacks. I apologize, I couldn't get the table larger. So it's setting back the 3 meter from one mobile home to the other. So that's basically your side yard is going from 3 meters to 0. They want a setback from the internal road from 2 meters to 0, and they want a setback to the rear and some of the side mobile home space lines from 1.5 to 0. This is where the carport locations are. It was unfortunate when this came through for rezoning and development permit that the carports weren't noted, because I'm pretty sure the layout would look a little different on that. So the recommendation, this does not come with a staff recommendation. The recommendation is simply to approve it to go to notification on the statutory 100-meter notification process. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? So, yes, Councillor Rowe.
I understand that roofs aren't made of highly combustible material, but I can't believe that the fire department is okay with them being that close together. I mean, obviously, I'm not correct in that, but are they involved in this process at all?
Through the chair, we refer to the fire department. We did do a site visit through the area this afternoon to go look at not only this area and where it would be, 'cause some of the driveways are in, but also to look at what exists in the current mobile home park. What they find is a lot of people simply build them over time on their own, and so I think one of the rationales here was to get a constant look to it. So it can. That's why we have setbacks. That's why we put them there. So it is something that would be taken into consideration before it came back with any kind of recommendation.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? So if this was to get approved, down the road, and we've basically allowed them to have no setbacks. Does it actually specify for carport only, or could we actually see people building garages?
We could actually specify that, and I think we'd want to be very clear of it being carport so it's not interpreted as the buildings as well. So we would write that in very clearly as to what is allowed. Other consideration when it comes back is how many. I don't know if it shows up on what is in the, if it actually shows it. One of our, yeah, it does. On page, it's right after the DVP, so the first thing, it shows the alignments. Our biggest concern is where there are two adjacent. That's a little bit concerning there, of it being very tight. It's also almost into their deck area on that. So that was one of the concerns that we had that would need to be looked at, of how many.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation from council, or from staff at this point, is that we just direct staff to undertake the notification process to hear back from the residents. I think we've already heard from one of the neighbors in the area. So no recommendation except to do that, okay? Councillor Rowe will make the recommendation as on number 2. Is there a seconder? Okay, any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. We'll move to item 10.5. This is for a manufacturing lounge endorsement license application, the Bricker Cider Company Limited, 6642 Norwest Bay Road. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And again, over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an application related to the Bricker Cider Company. They've made application to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch to change their current license. Right now, all they have is a tasting lounge license, which restricts them to only doing small amounts. It's 5 ounces that they can serve from their tasting lounge. What they would like to do is to provide opportunity to be able to serve their product by the glass, and be able to utilize their deck and a portion of what is currently their picnic area to bring that into a reduced size garden area, but it would allow them to serve there. This is, as well, again, subject to a notification process. We're mailing out with the application, or actually the notification letter and their letter of intent in a 300 meter. We expanded it because it's a rural area, so that will go out. It does get, on these kind of things, we also send to fire and RCMP. I think the detail in the report is fairly straightforward in terms of the capacities and where they're going, and the mapping gives you a better idea on that. So I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor McLean?
Have we received any bylaw complaints in relation to this property?
Yeah.
Through the chair, we received one related to odor, and it was when they had an event on. But in terms of the regular operations, nothing, and surprising, nothing on parking, because that's usually what we hear about. But yeah, it was a neighbor who had a concern there on one event.
Councillor McLean?
So that was my next question, parking. They are looking to increase their capacity from 56 to 82. Can we look at their parking capacity?
Staff?
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. And that becomes part of the approval process, because the liquor board will look at what your seating arrangement is, what your occupancy is, and make sure it's in alignment with the municipal regulations. So it is something we would comment on back to them. Thank you.
Another comment?
Yeah, just to follow up with that, I want to make sure that we do keep all vehicles off the road from parking. I know that was a huge issue at Persephone, so to make sure that they can keep everything on site here.
Oh, we absolutely would. It's a really dangerous area there. It's just very tight in terms of the shoulder, so it's not something we would permit.
So there's a recommendation, number 2, on the page, if there are no other questions. I'd like to move that recommendation. Move that motion. Second. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Thank you very much. So I'll move to councillor reports. And how about if we start with Councillor Rowe and go that way, and then start Councillor McLean and go that way. Did I start with you last time? Oh, I'm going to have to write this down.
Okay. So since last we met, I've been spending a lot of time reviewing our community investment program grant applications, which there are many. And I tell you, if you don't know what people are involved in this community, that's a great committee to sit on. We have much to be grateful for in the way of nonprofit organizations. I also attended our latest version of Med Talks, which is a project I'm involved with the Sechelt Hospital Foundation, that we hold a TED Talks type discussion about 3 or 4 times a year. And there's one tonight actually on breastfeeding. But on the 22nd, there was a huge one at the Sechelt Senior Center on heart and stroke, and 170 seniors attended, and there was a presentation on what is called a TIDES rehab program for post-stroke patients that is offered in Sechelt now, that's done via telehealth with specialists in Vancouver. And Dr. David Wood, who has a family cabin here on the coast, and actually who was a resident here many moons ago when I was an OR nurse, is now a world-famous cardiologist who's doing valve replacements without making an incision. And he's all over the world setting up centers of excellence. So he was speaking, and it was a great, really informative night. So I encourage anyone to check out Med Talks when you see it coming in the community. The next thing I'm going to be doing over the next few Monday evenings is partaking in the education around our anti-racism and hate protocol that District of Sechelt signed on to shortly after we were elected, so last fall. So April Struthers is going to be leading that. So I'll be doing that for the next 3 Monday nights. And that's it.
Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I think this was since the last council meeting, but it's been kind of busy, so I don't know. The manager of Public Works did a facilities tour. We went and checked out the Operations Center yard, the airport, and the Ebbtide Dog Park area. I attended the Library Board AGM, as well as several SCRD meetings over the last couple of weeks in the absence of Councillor Lamb and the unavailability of Councillor Rowe. Last week was pretty packed meeting-wise, and it was a pretty tough slog considering I was coming down with something, so I tried to take it easy-ish. And that's really all I got to say this week.
Councillor Scott, just arrived back today.
I've been away. I've been down in Grenada learning how to sail catamarans, so enjoying first time to turn the phone off for 3 weeks and not have to deal with anything. It's been great.
Yeah, good thing you're back. We're going to just chain you here now. Yeah. Okay, Councillor McLean.
Okay, so last night I attended the David Suzuki Foundation House Sound Mapping Information Center session. So what they're doing is they've created a tool to map the ecological value of house sound. It's a really cool thing. It's fully interactive and pulls in a huge variety of information sources all into this one interactive map. You can check it out now at housesoundconservation.ca. And it showed some sites where there's strong candidates for protection. And by chance, the federal government designated some of these sites for protection this morning. So there's now further protection for glass sponge reefs in particular in Howe Sound. Councillor Toth and I attended a active transportation strategy workshop for the province. It brought together many stakeholders in one room to discuss absolutely all the possible ways we could increase use of active transportation. They're going to be doing some regular online consultation at engage.bc.ca/active transportation. And this is a good chance for everyone on the Sunshine Coast to tell the province how unsafe it is to walk and cycle on our highway. 2 weeks ago, I attended the CIA reconciliation movement that celebrated the completion of 2 reconciliation blankets and the launch of a 3rd blanket. The 3rd blanket is going to be by Raquel Joe, and she's the curator of the Thames Suia Museum. Raquel will be welcoming everyone to assist her in weaving that blanket at Thames Suia. So it's a great chance to go there, check out the museum, and in about a month's time, they will be having a new exhibit. So I definitely encourage people to go then. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
I attended the SDBA AGM last Thursday. Prior to the AGM, they had a guest speaker, Ted Topping, who gave the audience an in-depth perspective on customer service in today's market and overview of how different generations shop, which was pretty interesting. They had great local businesses serving up food and cider. I think 202, Plethora, Ties, and Brickers were all there. To make a quick summary, they went over some key activities that they'll be doing this year, like the Art Crawl, Canada Day, Oktoberfest, Festival of Lights, and they are also going to be bringing back the block parties. They named their directors, and that was pretty much it.
Thank you. Thanks. One of the other ones that was there was the new butcher, right? That's yes. LL Meats, yes. Okay. Councillor Lamb.
I've attended the SCRD budget meetings, and it looks like we're pretty well got the budget for the SCRD put to bed. There'll probably be just some minor changes coming up, but so it looks like the change to the District of Sechelt, or the increase from the SCRD to the District of Sechelt will be about 2.5%, just in a rough number. So that's.
Thank you. All right, what have I been doing? My calendar's full. I can't even remember everything. I've been meeting with a number of developers about projects they're looking at bringing forward in the district. Staff have been very supportive. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing with them and with me to support that. I attended with a couple of the SCRD directors the talk at Persephone Brewing by Jen Vervier. She's a CEO of New something. She's the CEO of a New Brighton or something. Beer company she took from 10 million to 100 million. Persephone's looking for a new CEO, and they're considering a woman. So they've actually put it out that they want to bring a woman in, and they recognize that they want to go to the next level. So it was an opportunity to look at how do you keep a business working from the same values while they grow and move other locations as well. So they've spread around the states down in the United States, and she said that the way things may be done, the values were what kept the business moving forward and keeping the same feel to the customers. So we had some good conversations there. The company is set up so that all of the workers, the employees, own part of the shares. It's equity shares, so they have a say in how it runs. She said it really is effective, and that really ties into what Persephone is doing as well. I've spent a number of days and meetings at the regional district, so I'll get to that in a second. I also attended the BC Active Transportation Strategy Workshop but I went on the Saturday because I had other meetings on Friday. And one of the things I think showed up in theirs as well, because it was mentioned in mine that it showed up in yours, was that in order to have active transportation routes throughout the province, because the Ministry of Transport is responsible for roads everywhere outside the municipalities, unless the guidelines around how MOTI builds the roads, incorporating trails, bike paths, etc., it really makes it difficult to put together a comprehensive route from community to community. So that is something that's going to be taken back and looked at. This was the second, I think they said, of 8 engagements they were doing throughout the province. So they did the one the day before in Richmond, Surrey, and then this one was in Vancouver. They're going to Penticton and up north and on the island, a few around there over the next few weeks, and then they'll take all that information, gather it together, and feed it back to the people who were at these sessions, but also to the greater community. What they're looking at is how do we inform the provincial government around funding to ensure that we have routes that can be used for active transportation throughout the province. So there were only a couple of elected officials at the one I was at, and probably a few at yours as well. Again, a lot of special interest groups, cycling groups, etc. So it was very good to see all of the different perspectives coming forward and informing what they were doing. Okay, regional district, we had a couple of meetings. Some of them I think you've probably read about. At the meeting last week, the infrastructure meeting at the regional district, the reservoir study was brought forward. So that's on the infrastructure agenda. It's quite an extensive report. There was also a presentation done. And they looked at 3 different zones for reservoirs, area A being the lowest, closest to habitation, and then B higher and C up in the Alpine, with associated costs and sizes, etc. And this was a desktop study. There were some recommendations from that. And then in the budget on Monday, this past week, Regional District voted to approve the funding to take it to the next phase, to actually do the on-ground, in-person assessments of these various sites to determine which are feasible and how we would move them forward. I mean, it's different doing it as a desktop study, but actually getting in there, making sure that it would work is one of the things that was needed to move forward. Next one, they also talked about library funding at the regional district. They did approve funding, and that will be coming forward. I think it'll show up in a report that comes to us. We did finish up budget on Monday, and there are a few little tweaks there. We don't have all the final numbers. That should be coming forward to us fairly soon. A couple other things I just want to mention. On Thursday night, so tomorrow night, Chattelet Secondary School, the School District 46 is having a session on partners in learning. So community groups that they partner with throughout the year, they're recognizing them there. They actually have a few of them come forward and do some presentations. For example, last year they had Pods come forward as one of them. They have a list, but they have about 5 or 6 that do presentations. And then anybody who's in business, make note of the session tomorrow night. It's open to the public. The doors will open at 6:30 at the Seaside Center. The session is 1 hour from 7 till 8, and it's on workforce housing. So anybody who's in business who has an interest in workforce housing, make sure you attend, get your input in there. Friday night, there's an International Women's Day potluck at Roberts Creek Hall. And then Saturday night, Patrick Chan is going to be skating at the Gibsons and Area Community Center. One other thing on Saturday, Early Years Fair 2019 across the street. If you've ever wanted to tour that building, there's your opportunity from 9:30 till 1:30. I think that's it. All right. Sorry? Good. Yes, I have. Yes. All right, number 12.1. Items to be released from closed meeting. I don't have a page number here. Sorry, I'm too far. That's what Page 102. Release of resolutions from council meeting. So this is to release the recommendation with regards to the Visitor Information Center. Someone like to make the recommendation? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And then we'll move to council correspondence, 12.2. And there are a couple of items on here, and one of them is looking for council action. So first of all, a motion to receive the correspondence. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. If we look at page 123. All right, so there's a recommendation that we open discussion with around moving the archives. So I know that this has been a conversation that's been going on for a while, and I think this is something that we probably need to refer over to staff to come back with possible locations. Should we move to your house, Alton? See what? Okay, motion? Go ahead, go, yeah, speak to it.
As the liaison to the library board, I actually recommended that they send this letter to council to highlight what could be an easy win for reclaiming some space for meetings and working space for the library. The room is inappropriate for how it's being used. It doesn't meet, ergonomic and best work safe practices for archival records. And I'd love to see a way to move the archives into a more appropriate space. I'm happy to continue liaising with the library board and staff on this if that's council's wish, but.
Would you like to have staff look at this and come back with potential options?
Yes, I would like to see that come back in some form of a staff report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any other comments? I know that they are very cramped in there with the space that they have. There are other items that I believe we probably have some at the district that could become part of that. And it needs to be something that's more accessible to people, and we also should have that room available for the library. There are times when this room is not available for them to do community engagement, community sessions, public courses that they do, and that would be a perfect location for that. So I'm totally in support of that. Any comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Any late business items? Motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. Any questions from the gallery? Pam.
It's not really a question, but it just came to my attention the other day that a person that drives the ambulances, they hate going to Kiwanis because the road is so bad. I just thought I'd bring that up.
Okay.
About, transportation and whatnot. But it's getting really nasty for the ambulance drivers. Also, when they have an injured or ill person in that.
Thank you.